Hi, I was asked to explain the Jewish concept of the Messiah, the Mashiach. Jews believe in the concept of a time of redemption and of what we call the Messianic age, the Mashiach in Hebrew. So obviously it's a very broad subject. I want to just mention a few important points which I think are sometimes neglected. First of all, the concept of a redemption, the concept of a time where the world will achieve a certain ideal state, is already implied, according to our sages, in the first words of the Torah. The Torah starts the Genesis with the words Bereshit bara Elokim. In the beginning God created. The implication is that God created things with a purpose. An intelligent being does not do purposeless things. God creates the world with a purpose. The very fact that God created the world implies that there is a goal, that there is a purpose. The term Bereshit means beginning of. It's the beginning of something, i.e. the beginning of a process. The process means that it's going to get from one point to the end point. And that is implied, therefore, in the first three words of the Torah, our belief that the world is in a state of a process to achieve a certain end point, which is God's purpose in creation of the world. That is point number one, which I think is important to remember. Point number two is that belief in Messiah, belief in the Mashiach, is not only belief in God, but it involves belief in the Jewish people, and it involves belief in humanity, meaning you have to believe the human being is capable of this. Maimonides tells us that the Messianic age will come when we repent. And he says all the prophets predicted that we will do so, which means belief in Messiah also implies, according to Maimonides, belief in our ability to actually get better, our ability to improve, our ability to make progress, our ability to get to that end point. Number two. Point number three, also from Maimonides, is the Messiah does not necessarily have to be something miraculous. He says the Messiah, the Mashiach, will be a human being, descended from King David, will not necessarily have to do miracles. There will not necessarily be any change in the laws of biology, physics, etc. What will change is the human being, but not an intrinsic change in our nature, but a change in which we will move towards better morality, better ethics, better spirituality, and move towards what we are supposed to be doing in our lives. So Maimonides says that the Mashiach and the Messianic world can happen in a naturalistic fashion, through natural events. For example, Maimonides does not mention this, but I am mentioning this, which is we believe that part of the time of redemption is the ingathering of the exiles, the Jewish diaspora, in which Jews have been scattered all over the world, from Yemen to New Zealand and from Siberia to Argentina, etc. That will eventually, that diaspora will come to an end. We have seen a natural process nowadays in which the Jews have returned to our homeland. Starting a little over 100 years ago, we had, and of course, Jews have been returning there for many, many years, but there was a stream of Jews coming back to Israel. At this day, we have over 6.5 million Jews living in the state of Israel. That's pretty amazing. The Jews of Albania, the Jews of Austria, Jews from Ethiopia, Jews from Australia, Jews from Brazil, etc., living in the land of Israel. I mean, if that is not an ingathering in exile, I'm not exactly sure what it is. But it's certainly a naturalistic process guided by God, divine providence, and there certainly have been miracles involved in that, but certainly leading towards that situation of the redemption. So those are 3 points to keep in mind regarding the redemption, and one more idea, which is that there is a mitzvah that, I don't know if it's an actual mitzvah, one of the 613 commandments, but Maimonides tells us that we are supposed to expect and wait for that redemption. What does that actually mean, to expect and wait for it? It doesn't necessarily mean not to do anything. We're allowed to settle in the land of Israel. Obviously, Maimonides says that, and he tried to do that himself. We are obligated to try to rebuild the land of Israel. We are supposed to make the world a better place through our actions, not just passively sit back and not do anything. But what it means is that we have to have a belief and an expectation that this can happen. Golda Meir once said that Jews are optimists. We don't have the luxury to be pessimists. And indeed, we have been optimists. The fact that we haven't given up after all that we have gone through, after all of our suffering, etc., all the setbacks, shows that deep down within the Jewish soul there is that optimism. I think that optimism comes from the idea of the messianic time of the Mashiach. And that optimism is not just found amongst Jews. There's a certain optimism in people. Sometimes it can be taken away from them, educated out of them, but children have that optimism. They'll fall, they'll fail, but they'll try again and again and again, because deep down the human being, I think, the soul knows that Bereshit bara Elokim, in the beginning God created a beginning. That's the beginning of a process, and it will end with something very good and positive and God's purpose fulfilled in the world. And that realization deep down in the soul of the human being is what gives us that sense of optimism and hope. So those are a few ideas about the Mashiach, not completely explained, but in our 5 minutes and 53 seconds, I think hopefully you've got a little bit of a picture of what we mean when we say, I believe in the coming of the Mashiach. Thank you very much for watching, and feel free to put further questions that I can discuss in the comments section under the video.